Hello guys, my name is Rizky from acreativealt, and in this video, I just want to give you a quick guide on picking up your first camera. Never go into debt just to buy a gear, and getting a project doesn't mean that you will get paid. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. So just for context purpose, I've been in the creative line for about 15 years. I'm currently running my own video productions company for about 5 years now, where we have been very fortunate to have completed more than 500 projects to date. When I was just starting out doing video productions, buying my first camera sounds to be a really expensive investment. Of course, back then, I absolutely have no idea if I can actually make money from making videos just yet. Therefore, spending thousands of dollars of hard-earned money to buy a camera sounds to be pretty daunting. So in this video, I'm not going to give you exact recommendations on which model to buy or even which brands to buy. What I would like to highlight on this video is basically the difference between the types of cameras in the market. What kind of camera that is ideal for what type of a project. So therefore, you can actually decide what camera that you would like to buy based on the projects that you would like to do. Camera models changes all the time. We've seen upgraded models every year, but I do believe the types of camera doesn't change that much. There are three types of cameras in the market. DSLR, or nowadays is actually more of a mirrorless camera, an ENG or a broadcast camera, and a cinema camera. You can make money and make a living from any of these cameras. If someone asks me what camera should I buy, the first thing that I would ask is actually, what do you want to do with the camera? Nowadays in 2022, if you ask someone which camera you should buy, probably the answer will be a mirrorless camera. Something like what I have here, which is still basically the industry standard of a mirrorless camera in the market nowadays, which is a Sony a7 III. I still believe this is a really value for money of a camera. You can actually do a lot of projects with it. We've done hundreds of projects with this camera alone. The next thing that you can buy is actually this kind of a camera, which is a broadcast style camera, ENG style of a camera, and lastly, something like this, which is called a cinema camera. It's not about which one is better. Each of these three types of a camera that I mentioned just now has its own benefits. I'm going to skip the mirrorless for now at this point of time. I'm going to mention it at last because this is probably the most common thing that people would buy nowadays. I'm going to start with this broadcast camera. So as you can see, this camera, it's pretty big as compared to a mirrorless camera, of course. But one thing to note on this particular camera is the fact that the sensor is actually fairly small, which is kind of the similar size of a sensor of those high-end point-on-shoot camera, mainly used in events kind of situations, in a broadcast of situation. We mainly use this in a company whenever we are doing a live stream project. In these types of a camera, everything is actually integrated. You have a dedicated buttons for all of the settings that you can access right away when you're actually shooting an event. Most of the time when you're shooting events, you are basically recording whatever that is happening, and typically the camera will actually run throughout the entire event. So an example, we actually did a live stream events pretty recently, whereby the events was actually about 4 hours long. So this camera was basically being run and recording for 4 hours straight. So that is the benefit of this kind of a camera. You can plug it into an adapter, put a big SD cards or recording device in it, and basically record all the way without stopping at all. You can even use this to run for 2 days. We even tried to run this for 2 days before. This is the types of a camera that you probably need to buy if you are actually doing a live coverage of an event, whereby your output is actually a long form kind of event recording. So an example, you have a 8 hours conference. And you need to capture the whole 8 hours instead of doing a highlight. This is the type of a camera that you probably need to buy. I never seen this type of camera being overheated before, regardless which model. It's definitely suitable for a long form kind of a recording. The next thing that I would like to mention is actually a cinema camera. Use this type of a camera if you are shooting a slightly more higher end kind of a corporate videos or advertisement. The reason being that something like this was actually like buying a motherboard, whereby you can customize all the accessories according to your need, according to the projects that you're working on. and basically record many different kind of settings on it. It can even record an ultra wide format or cinema format natively. So the benefit of this camera is that it's pretty customizable. Again, literally you're buying a motherboard and you build your accessories around it. Most of the cinema camera can actually record raw format, and therefore allowing you to do a more detailed color gradings. You can choose your recording device, create a battery rig out of it, and so on and so forth. But of course, this kind of a camera comes with the hassle. It doesn't have a lot of the automatic functions that typically happens on the mirrorless camera or the broadcast kind of a camera. You will probably need more time for you to edit the footage. So therefore, if you have a fast kind of edits kind of process, for example, let's say we always do projects whereby we need to produce social media content for clients. Typically, they need it really fast because it's pretty much the reactions of whatever trendings. We won't use this kind of a camera. But if you have a project whereby it requires us to do a proper color gradings, everything is storyboarded properly and so on and so forth, this is our go-to camera. To be honest, at this point of time, we don't use that camera that much, but I simply purchased that camera because that is the next direction that we want to go for. Me and my colleagues, we can practice that particular camera together. And of course, lastly, I would like to mention this, the mirrorless camera. The most commonly used camera in the market nowadays. If you are new, I do believe something like this can actually cover about 80% of your project's need. You are a beginner that is trying to basically learn the basic of a camera. You're not sure what kind of a project that you will take just yet. I do believe this is probably the best idea for you to buy. So of course, this kind of a mirrorless camera will give you a lot of flexibilities. You can even build this into a full-blown cinematic camera system. So for example, I can add a cage on it. Put a cinema lens on it, on external recorder, add on an XLR device. Once you have done multiple projects, you will start to understand what you actually require. So for example, for my case nowadays, our typical projects are pretty simple. We do a lot of interview style videos, but the setup time that we have is always very tight. So therefore, I always like to keep everything to be simple, something that we can quickly set up, shoot, tear down, and done for the day. I'm probably one of the rare one who do videos but don't really like to purchase the gear. I hardly have those, like gear acquisition syndrome kind of thing. So I only buy things that I actually need for the projects that we do. There are some challenges of it. For example, one of the challenges is the fact that most of this type of mirrorless camera can't actually record more than 30 minutes of footage. So therefore, if I were to do a full day of events coverage, whereby I have to run the camera statically for 8 hours straight and record the entire session, this is definitely not the camera that I would use. So just a quick tip for all of you guys who are starting out, think about the ideal projects that you want to do next time and buy the gear that you need for that project. If you're not sure what kind of projects that you want to do, but you just simply want to do video productions, I think the best bet is to purchase a mirrorless system. This is probably the most versatile thing that you can actually buy nowadays. If you can't afford to buy what people say the industry standard at this point of time, you don't have to worry about it. Just buy something that you can afford. Never go into debt just to buy a gear. And getting a project doesn't mean that you will get paid. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. Buy a system that you can afford and slowly upgrade from there. Unless you're dealing with a really high-end projects with a big number of crew, I don't think you need the latest and greatest gear. There are a lot of things that you can actually do with this affordable system. I actually have another video showcasing the beginner system that I would like to recommend. The video is kind of old, but I do believe it's still relevant at this point of time. If you happen to have projects that needed more equipment or a better gear whatsoever, you can always rent it. As long as you understand the basic of the camera, any cameras that comes your way, you should be able to learn it pretty quickly. Most of the mirrorless systems from the big camera makers out there are pretty much good enough nowadays. Trust me, any gears that you buy at this point of time will be a lot better compared to some of the gears that I personally used when I just starting out many years back. My first camera was a Canon 60D. So with that, I do hope this video can actually give you a quick guidelines on what type of a camera that you should buy. At this point of time, 2022, I do believe that all of the cameras out there are pretty good camera. You can probably just spend $1,000 and pretty much make a living from that particular camera. Unlike in the past whereby you need to spend like $10,000s just to get a beginner set kind of thing. So which type of a camera do you prefer? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment below. This is just a small channel, so I do believe I would have time to look through different questions. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I also do a daily behind the scene on my Insta story. If you want to know what types of projects that we actually do, you can actually check out my Instagram. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time.